Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NextDev FM. My name is Ryan Vogel, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host here,
Dan Goosewit.
And today we are joined by Dax. Dax, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys? That intro was crazy.
You like the 3D stuff?
Yeah. Was that just? I guess it was just static, and you just like rotated the camera around it. It looked legit.
This is off topic, but I literally reached out to one of my old buddies who was a 3D animator, and he had a bunch of like retro stuff, and I was like, I really like this retro vibe. So a little bit of the stuff moves, like the mouse and some of that stuff, but I did some cool animations to make it look legit. We're going to be upgrading it though. Once we have like enough episodes, we're going to incorporate like clips of the episodes in the intro. Kind of like a Marvel screen. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, our podcast is nowhere near this produced already, so you're already surpassing our production quality.
You can hit us up. You can hit us up. I'll happily contribute. Anyways, so you obviously do a lot of stuff. You're definitely not in just one company. So give us the 2-minute origin story on how you got into computers and coding and this lovely world of hydration errors.
Yeah, so I am a classic Nepo baby, I think. My dad is a software engineer, so I grew up exposed to that at a pretty early age. He pretty much, just most of his career did very similar things to what software looks like today. So I grew up around all that. A lot of his work was building like just large scale data analysis systems for financial companies. So early age was programming, building stuff, messing around. He actually didn't want me to become a software engineer because he thought it was like a capped career based off of like his experience where he worked. But, I ended up just pursuing it anyway. Ended up starting a company out of high school with a friend, worked on that for about 1.5 years before it got acquired, joined the other company, ended up running engineering there for a couple years, then left to just go solo again, spent a bunch of time consulting at a bunch of different companies, went back to being a founder for a bit. That company I got fired from, which I mentioned from you at React Miami. Then went back to, doing my own thing. Like I worked at a bigger company for a little bit. Then I spent a bunch of time doing open source work, found SST, contributed a bunch, invested in the company, joined the company. And then since then, I've been doing just a lot of open source work. And that's when I was doing stuff a lot more publicly.
Cool. And that's the episode, everyone. Thank you for joining. Anyways.
Yeah. So really, really curious to hear more about your origin though. What was your first project ever in programming? Let's start there.
I was really young. I think I was like under 10, maybe that was 10 years old. I think I vaguely remember building a website using Microsoft Front Page. Which was a nice like what you see is what you get type of thing. And I built a website about eagles because I was obsessed with eagles. And I wrote like a whole website all about eagles. And the cursor when you went to the website was like a little eagle. I think that was probably my first thing. Yeah.
Is it still
live?
That
sounds very American. Very American. Can we find it?
Yeah. I mean, America picked a great mascot. Like bald eagles are awesome.
Yeah, they are.
This is going to turn into a bald eagle stream. Tell us your top 10 facts.
Bald man talks about bald eagles. Yeah.
So wait. You said you had cursor like be replaced with eagle? Is that what you said?
Yeah. You go on the website and the mouse cursor would be an eagle. To be honest, I'm like, this was possible back in like, this would be like early 2000s, maybe 2002 or something.
You never see that happening anymore. Like where the cursor is replaced with
anymore.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah.
No one does.
I was going to say, like, it had to be like a while back, right?
Yeah. This is probably maybe like you guys are probably too young for this, but this was like the OG internet where everything was insane. Yeah, and like, every website just had crazy stuff going on everywhere.
Yeah.
No, I was partially a part of that. Obviously, it wasn't all that, but this actually happened when I was talking to Ken in Miami with our 90-second NextDev, but I was doing QBasic on a computer, and all the documentation was on these super cool setups and stuff like that. And I loved it because you had, what was the tag that would like make a text like go marquee? Loved that. Yeah. And there was one doc site where they were messing with me, and the critical piece of code was like stretched the entire width, and you would kind of like have to watch the marquee and like copy over like the relevant text from it before it scrolled off screen to like the other side. And I'm like, why are we making this so difficult? But obviously.
I remember implementing marquee was so hard back in the day. You had to manually compute the width and apply CSS style with like transforms to make it animate properly and not like jump at the end of the animation. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, marquees are not in fashion anymore.
Yeah, it's not that cool anymore.
I know. Now it's all about this. It's all about shad and tailwind and not even frame motion. Now it's just motion. Yeah, the not black and white, it's slate.
Oh, right.
That's right. So going back to you and SST, what made you get into that project? Curious to hear what was the story behind that.
Yeah, so basically I spent most of my career, as I explained, like pretty early stage companies. So I was doing everything, like everything from the products, but then also like the infrastructure stuff. And given that it was just like a slice of my focus, my approach was never to go that deep and just instead use kind of like generic tools that work no matter what cloud I was in. So eventually found Kubernetes, was building everything with Kubernetes because, you know, whether you're doing Kubernetes in AWS or Google Cloud or whatever, like it's the same. So I kind of built everything in an agnostic way. And a lot of people still do that, and that's fine. And I just got bored, and I was like, what if I did the opposite? And I'm like, what if I go really deep and build like a very AWS native application? Like, what does that look like? And are there benefits? Like, what's worse? What's better? I just wanted to understand all that because basically it was the opposite of my thinking at that point. So I started like actually learning a bunch of AWS stuff more specifically than I knew at that point. Found a lot of the serverless stuff. You know, AWS kind of pioneered a lot of the serverless mindset.
They
around
hit
building
that
things.
like a couple years before it kind of caught in with like Vercel and stuff like that, right? I think because was it Lambda, or was there like an iteration before that kind of pioneered on the serverless stuff before it kind of became mainstream?
Yeah, I would say there was like a few other attempts prior to Lambda that like, because ultimately it's just like a billing model shift, and it does require like a crazy amount of technology to enable the billing model shift. But there were a few other services that were trying to build off of usage. But Lambda was obviously the one that really went big, and a lot of the architecture patterns were kind of like discovered in these big like AWS Lambda projects. And that was when I was first exposed to the idea of, okay, if you like ignore this agnostic thing, which is like everyone's instinct to be like, oh, how do I optimize for portability? How do I optimize for switching vendors, et cetera? Let's say you just do the opposite. What benefits do you get? So I like, was building stuff in a very AWS native way, understanding all that, understanding what trade-offs there are. Found the tooling for all this to be pretty horrible. So I ended up having to build a bunch of my own stuff to like have the typical nice fast feedback loops, the typical debug process that we're used to. Started building like kind of crappy tools, but they worked. And SST was like a very early, like the first version ever was like launched around that time. And I came across it, and at first I was like, well, they like solved a bunch of problems better than I did, but like, do I really want to use an abstraction? But eventually I just kept improving. So I started to use it, and I'm like, this is great. Then I started to contribute to it. Right. And then, you know, I liked the team, and so I ended up joining.
They said, we'll acquire you. We'll acquire the person. So you've obviously contributed before you came and joined the team at SST. How many like contributions would you say on average? Because like everyone in open source and stuff like that, there's like 1 or 2 contributions a week and stuff like that. Maybe a couple PRs. Like I know I've contributed to like Zero Mail, like maybe like once or twice a week for something like that?
Yeah.
Did you just have like these massive like 60,000 line file change commits where they're like, holy cow, man, we're just going to hire you so that way you can just review it yourself and push it? Or was it like some more subliminal stuff?
Yeah. So it was, I don't know if in terms of like lines of code, I don't really remember, but basically their major hook was this live Lambda thing, which solves the big issue when you're doing a lot of Lambda function development. The loop of like changing code, updating the Lambda, running it was very slow. So they invented like a really cool way to do that. And I looked at that system and it was a clever way, it's a clever solution, but I thought of a better way to implement it so that it more mimicked the way it actually ran in production, so that it could support all different languages. It could support like, it was just a more accurate simulation of how it really works. So I like basically drew up a diagram of like, here's what you guys have currently, here's the shift I think you should make, and here's like why it benefits. I think I ended up contributing a decent amount of code for that. I'm pretty sure Frank, like, I don't think it was like merged as it is. He like looked at it and like massaged it and got it in. And I was just spending a bunch of time in their Slack, like answering questions, like talking to them and like coming with other ideas and improving things. And I ended up having like several long, I posted in the Slack at some point, like, hey, I'm like maybe considering it for a new role. Let me know if anyone's interested. And they messaged me. I ended up having like, me and Jay had like 3 meetings that were like 2 hours long each. Pretty intensive. Both of us are very long-winded. So we were just like, they were like really assessing like my just product ability, like just because, you know, it's 2 of them. Adding a 3rd person is a huge culture impact.
Yeah.
So we're just like really testing out compatibility. And yeah, I think I was just in like the right place in my career, and they were like at the right stage, and it like fit.
Just everything
perfectly.
just synced up and aligned to kind of make it happen. So how long have you been at SST now?
I think it's been 4 years, either 4 or 5. I think I joined summer 2021. So
right.
Yeah, it'll be 4 years.
That's crazy. So SST, you've been there for 4 years. SST just passed 23,000 stars on the repo, I recall.
Mhm.
How do you measure success for like this open source sort of project? Is it just like star count, number of people helped, number of X
it's really just
posts
it's actually very
yay.
similar to any kind of consumer app. We just look at we're very on top of our numbers. We look at our weekly active users every week, and we to make sure it's going up every week. And obviously NPM downloads also something we track, but that's like kind of more of a lagging indicator. Like stuff that you do today that works shows up there like 6 months later. And obviously all the way down to our funnel of revenue obviously is an important part. So I think those 3 things are the things that we typically track.
Money definitely matters, I can say.
Yeah.
If no money, no good. And that's
Yeah, no bueno. So I've been using SST since version 2. I've been in love with it. I've had my hesitations also, as you mentioned, on like having an abstraction layer on top of, you know, CTK constructs and whatnot. But ended up loving it because it's just so that simple. Like, why wouldn't you use it? And with V3, I know you guys have made a move to Pulumi, right?
Yeah.
So how do you like avoid becoming a black box? What is your sort of thinking on how to make things simple, but also not make too many decisions for the users?
Yeah. So if you look at our whole strategy, or our entire purpose of existing is actually just that. It's to make sure that your stuff is not a black box. It's very easy. I wouldn't say very easy, but it's not super hard to build if you want to solve the problem of let's make things easy to deploy, not super hard to like create some kind of hosted service that like lets you connect your GitHub and then deploy it, and you know it works and you like manage all of that. It's a lot harder to then allow users to say, hey, we need to make sure that this header is injected into the request at their CDN layer before it hits the rest of our system, right? It's like an infinite set of permutations of people needing customizability. Obviously, early projects, simple projects don't need those things, but when you're talking about serious companies, enterprise companies, but also just like startups that are growing, they just eventually need some weird customization. And that's really the only reason SST exists, because on day one, you have a nice set of simple components that you can probably use out of the box, and you don't need a crazy amount of customization. But it's not really like a black box that you can't reach into. Like you can go in and customize any aspect of how the component works. For the areas that we don't cover, you can fall back to the lower level providers and bring up any kind of infrastructure that you want, whether it's in AWS, in Cloudflare, like Stripe, like whatever it is. And we really build the products for ourselves. The things that we build, a lot of these like newer hosting services, they just can't support the workloads, the type of things that we build. So we still need to manage our own infrastructure, but this is a nice way of still having some of those benefits. But when you outgrow them, you can kind of reach down into the lower layer.
And I think that's a big thing too. And it's a good grounding method for anybody working on their own app or founding anything. If you use your own app heavily and your own infrastructure is based off of it and you're using it constantly for everything like that, it's a good grounding method, because then you can understand the end user's goal. Like if I were to just drop everything today and start like a HR management app, it would be horrible because I don't do HR management. But if I were to drop everything today and work on a like a 3D printing workflow app, it'd be perfect, because I mean, I got a 3D printer workflow. So I do think that's a big thing, where you have that internal grounding within your organization to kind of figure out, okay, is this actually just like a user requested feature, or is this actually something that we need to implement?
I like to advise to people to just solve problems for themselves. This is how you build the best products.
Right. Yeah, it's actually only pros can build stuff for other people. It's like you need to be quite good at building stuff to really execute well. I think there's a little bit of a trap though for developers where so you should try to build stuff that you yourself want or need. As a developer, a lot of them think, I'm a developer, let me build stuff for other developers. And the dev tool space is one of the hardest and most challenging and difficult spaces to be in, like, and especially open source. Like almost no open source projects really make it to profitability, let alone something venture scale. So I'd advise devs, like, build something for yourself, but it's probably a dev tool is probably not what you should do.
Right. So you've got a lot of open projects with that. Mm-hmm. You've got Open Next, Open Auth, Open Control. By the way, love Open Auth. Once I understood why Open Auth existed, it's like, oh, why are we not all using it? But anyways, I digress. We'll get into that later. How do you kind of figure out when like a little folder on your app called test converts into open whatever in the future? How's your workflow kind of go with that?
I think there's each of these projects have I think roughly a different kind of story. Open Next is a funny one because we're not Next.js users, so this is actually a case where we didn't build for ourselves. But given that we were the people that were doing stuff for AWS users, every single week we had users being like, yeah, I like what you guys are doing, but like, please help me deploy my Next.js app. Like that's right. Like what I really care about. And we were just like, we don't want to do that. Like, and we were literally kicking the can around on that for like probably over a year. And eventually we're just like, so many people are asking, I guess we just have to bite the bullet and do this. By we, I mean, we made Frank do it. So Frank just like hunkered down and tried to figure out all the Next.js internals and figuring out how to like optimize getting on AWS. So that was like the idea behind, that was our first one. The idea behind that was there were so many fragmented efforts of getting this to run well outside of Vercel. Some of those efforts were just like legit companies like Netlify or AWS themselves. A lot of them were like these fragmented open source ones, like, and they would all like work for 6 months. Then the maintainer would be like, this is way more work than I thought. And they would abandon it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. And it makes sense because it is a lot of work. Like the framework changes a lot and like, stuff breaks. So we're like, we have enough of a community. Let's try to like kickstart something. And then hopefully like the community collectively takes over it. We ended up working out, like it was pretty popular. And eventually we had some pretty great maintainers that like really took it to the next level, made it all work. And graduated even beyond that, where now, Cloudflare has their own flavor of Open Next, and Netlify has their own flavor of Open Next, and everyone's kind of pulling resources and just information together. Right. So that was really, really great. And our thinking basically is whenever there's just an awkward space that nobody seems to be occupying, Like nobody was working on the Next.js problem, so we just stepped into it. So whenever we see that kind of thing, we try to see if there is something we can do. The OpenAuth one, that one was a little more personal. Like we needed this solved, and on AWS you use Cognito for auth, and 30% of our support requests were around Cognito. Like not because anything ST related. It's just such a bad service that people just always get into dumb
Cognito
situations.
is rough, man.
Yeah.
It is rough for sure.
Yeah. So I was sick of just trying to help people use Cognito. And I was like, we got to give people a different option. And spent a bunch of time just analyzing all the different hosted auth services, and then realized like there was actually a very minimal slice of things that we could do that would make it easier while still retaining a lot of control over how your user system and your data works. We did like a first version of it that like kind of missed the mark. I did not do a good job because I didn't understand the auth spec well enough. Then the second iteration on it, which is what OpenAuth is now, has been a lot better. So
right.
Yeah, so we have a few of these left. Like the next one is probably going to be Open Event, which is durable execution. I don't know what we're going to call it. Open Event, Open Workflow, something like that. It's going to be durable execution that just, the only dependency is your database, and you can have something like ingest running in your own infrastructure. Open Email, which is going to be a good abstraction across all different email providers. So anywhere in our own applications, we're like, we really need this. We usually will just spin up an open blank.
Right. So jumping back really, yeah. So jumping back really quick, I wanted to focus on the OpenNext thing because we've gotten some questions. Why did OpenNext need to exist? Is it just because the Next.js framework couldn't run on a traditional server-like capacity, or can you go into a little bit of like what the main major resolutions?
Next.js is a very complex framework, and a lot of the features are quite easy when you self-host. That they just work. Some features were a lot more difficult because they required somewhat sophisticated infrastructure, and some of that was like pretty custom to Vercel. So recreating some of that outside of Vercel just took like the average front-end developer is not going to know how to do that. It really requires someone that has infrastructure experience.
Right.
And also understanding that for a lot of these things, there's like 3 different ways you could do it on AWS, like which one's the best way, which one's a good default, which one is like good for 10% of people that need it, just kind of figuring out those things. And also this dynamic has changed a bit. Like historically, just the Next.js team didn't have time to allocate to like helping make some of this stuff easier. So they was very focused on, their own setup, which makes sense. The past year or so, they've been kind of actively working with the OpenNext team and like removing the need for a lot of OpenNext. And I imagine like the end state is maybe OpenNext just doesn't even exist because like other frameworks, Next.js gets good first party adapter support for different places you're deploying to. I don't think it'll get that far because, like I said, it is just a lot more complicated than other frameworks. So I think it's always going to need a bunch of last mile decisions depending on where you're deploying.
Right.
The situation's definitely gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next.js is like a fairly opinionated framework, and many like to criticize them for how far they may go from web standards and whatnot, and how much they decide for the developer. It would be helpful, like if they were to like document more of their decisions, since they're sort of an open source framework, right? Did you find that the documentation was lacking in the process of you trying to reproduce a lot of these?
I look at it a little bit differently. I just see it as a trade-off. Like Next.js to me is a very vertically integrated framework, which means like it's very purpose-built to take advantage of certain infrastructure, which gives you certain superpowers if you need them, right? I don't think every project needs them. I actually think it's almost a minority of projects that really need them. But that's a benefit of using Next.js. Like most people, when they come to us and they're like, oh, we're thinking about moving from Vercel to AWS and Next.js, like, and they have questions. I'm just like, are you sure you want to do that? Because you're kind of giving up the benefit. Like using Next.js and Vercel together is kind of the point. Other frameworks are simpler and easier to deploy in a bunch of places and kind of stick to web standards. And the trade-off there is like, you won't get these like really extremely optimized scenarios. So I just tell people like really evaluate. If you're someone that like is building something that really takes advantage of those things, makes total sense. But I think for a lot of people, just more like not vertically integrated framework makes a little bit more sense.
Makes sense. Anyway, moving on. You are somebody who has a bunch of experience in infrastructure tooling, in serverless. You're, I would call, an expert in these domains. And you've seen over the past few years opinions change on these topics. For example, serverless is no longer as hype as it used to be a few years ago. I don't know if you agree, but
what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like we've kind of come full circle with all this AI stuff now, where we need sort of that active state. So what are your thoughts? Here, let's clip this. This will be our intro slide.
I've always thought the conversation's always been stupid, because most of the people talking just don't have the full perspective. If you look at serverless adoption, it is insane and continuing to grow like crazy. And it has like a funny history, because most new technologies gets adopted by startups first, because startups are early adopters. Where you put out a new framework, it's most likely going to be like early stage companies trying it out, not Nike, right? Not like the post office. But serverless was a little bit different, because it was such like a cloud native thing that it was mostly adopted by giant enterprises first. So there's like all these like huge, crazy serverless deployments at like insane scale that are in enterprise that you just never hear about. And that just continues to grow. Like, if anyone just needs to look at like Datadog does a state of serverless every year, and they kind of talk about how the usage has changed and how people are using it, what tools are using it, whatever. It's continued to grow. Like, there's no like shift in whatever like sentiment shift that people feel. Like, it doesn't really map back to that, because it does have like a lot of useful situations. I think the other thing that's flipped a little bit is serverless containers have gotten a lot better. There's a lot of good options. Like Fargate on AWS is very good now. It used to not be very good. Like pretty quick to spin up new containers. Like they fixed a bunch of the issues. And I still count those as serverless, right? Because the idea, it's all about the billing model, not really any specific technology. The idea is you pay for your usage, not like fixed costs up front. So yeah, to me, like, it just continues to grow. I think people have like a weird flavor of it they like to get into arguments about, but it's just in real world, not really how it operates.
Yeah. So with artificial intelligence exploding in popularity and everybody trying to build LLM integrations to their apps, what do you think will be the next sort of tectonic shift in infrastructure tooling?
Yeah, so I literally spent, and I talked to you, right, about this. Like, I talked to probably 30 or so SST companies using SST that were doing, they're like considered AI companies. Talked to every single one about their workloads, like what does it look like, what problems are you having. Tried very, very, very hard to figure out if there was any kind of new paradigm shift, anything that was new that they needed. They all just look like very boring traditional architectures that have a data engineering pipeline. It's like they have a lot of async work. They have a bunch of data that they're getting in. They got to massage it asynchronously, put it into places. And so, yeah, like, it just looks like the same stuff my dad was doing, like a very long time ago. So I think a lot of people maybe haven't been exposed to like the async. I think newer engineers maybe haven't been exposed to like the whole async type of workload. So that might be new for them. I think a lot of these like more modern platforms like do not support async workloads at all, or like data processing workloads at all. So I think people are like rediscovering what those tools and those patterns look like. So I haven't seen anything dramatically shift. Obviously might be wrong. Maybe there is something that I'm missing, but yeah, I've like hit my head on the desk trying to figure it out. And every single company I've talked to just looks very boring architecturally.
Yeah. Even visually too. It's all Shatsy, and it's like it's got the same animation styles and everything like that. And I'm like, I know you vibe, especially if it's got the header, that like hero center with like the text and the button with like the background image, and then like the new products. It's just like, come on, how did you vibe code this in like 5 minutes?
Linear's original landing page. So yeah. The whole dark nightclub vibe.
Right. So obviously in open source, you're not getting a paycheck from GitHub to maintain that repo. I mean, it'd be nice if they did. I think that'd be That'd be cool. Oh, that's funny. So this is just too good to not cover. So you have OpenNext, OpenAuth. When are you gonna have OpenAI? Oh,
Yeah, I've already made this joke. I'm like, should we do OpenAI? Yeah, I mean, I
Did
think
you see
open
that
code
they are
could have
not-
been named OpenAI, but you know,
they're not open sourcing GPT-4, like the state model. I am shocked by that. I mean, it's not that
Why are you
we didn't
shocked?
see it coming.
They're not
it's
open.
not that we didn't
Everybody
see it
knows
coming.
that.
Yeah, it's closed AI.
Closed AI.
Someone
Yeah.
should file that trademark.
It's just funny because there are a lot of companies that open in the name, and we end up like overlapping a little bit. Like, we're considering building an AI gateway type thing, and we're like, I guess it's open router. Like that's what it would be. So we gotta keep coming up with like different names that don't conflict. Yeah.
Oh my
Real
gosh.
open router. Yep.
Yeah.
Real open router.
Anyways, getting back on track because that was good, Dak. So GitHub doesn't pay you. What do you think the best way to get sort of that sustainability in open source is? Is it like sponsors, licenses, VC money, investments? What do you think is like the most sustainable, and what do you think is like the correct way to do it for anybody who's wanting to contribute and work in open source full time? They got to get paid and live somewhere.
Yeah. So I think there's like different types of projects, right? Like, I think a lot of the people that complain, I want to work in open source, but like I don't get paid for it. I think they're just not doing their job, which is get creative and find a business model that works. For a lot of projects, there is a aligned business model that still allows the product to genuinely be open source and have the benefits of being open source with something that's optional, that's commercial, which is exactly how SST works. Everything we do is open source. When you're in production, we have an entirely optional console, which helps you do tasks that as a team you might care about, right? Look at logs, see issues, keep track of deploys, like stuff like CI, like a bunch of things like that. You generally do not need it. Like it's not forced at all. It's just complementary. And enough people in our funnel, convert to that to let us to keep going, right? Keep the lights on and get paid. So that wasn't easy to discover that. We tried 3 different versions of the console before we found one that made sense. You have to not just execute on one product really well, you have to execute on 2 products really well. Like ST itself has to be good enough to grow. The console has to be good enough to convert. It's not easy. It's again why I don't recommend doing dev tools or open source generally for most people. So there are, I think, a whole set of projects that could be that if you are committed and creative enough. There's a way to do that.
Have you seen that like the level? Have you seen like the level for dev tools, like the criteria and criticism level is like 10x higher? I think it is because it's like when you develop a tool, it's either really well or it's really good, or devs are like, I could just build this in like 5 minutes on my own. Why would I ever use your tool? Have you seen that like sort of vibe?
Yeah, I think this is another, again, is why I don't recommend devs to go into this space. I think they go into it with kind of a naive sense. If you think about like the stereotypical dev, like what they're good at, what they're not good at. If you couldn't launch a B2C like consumer social app, you probably shouldn't do a dev tool because it's almost the exact same thing. You have to, it's effectively B2C, right? You're like capturing individual consumers. You gotta get them to the aha moment as fast as possible where it clicks for them that this is useful. And you have to get them to tell all their friends and coworkers about it. So it's
and like, it can't break.
Well, I mean, yeah, it shouldn't break. We've had things that, I mean, it's funny because like if we mess up, your database gets deleted. So like the stakes are pretty high.
Right.
But like, yeah, I mean, like stability is a big thing. So it's like this weird marriage of like really traditional engineering, like building tools for engineers, but also like almost all the aspects of like a B2C, like social media type app. The other founder that I really admire is Jared from Bun, because I feel like he's one of the few people in the space that has both. He comes from a background of building like viral apps, but still also has an engineering side to him. Both Frank and Jay previously worked on like very consumer focused applications in social media. So I don't think people would expect that getting into dev tools because it feels very engineering, but it has this other side of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say somebody does decide to work in developer tooling space. What would be your advice to getting started?
Yeah, the key thing here is understand that it's extremely easy to build something that is useful on day one, and extremely difficult for people not to outgrow it. And if you look at, like, it's funny, SST's been around long enough now where I look back at all the companies that were kind of like came out around the same time as us, and almost all of them are dead. Like almost all of them are dead. It doesn't feel good. Like it honestly feels like it doesn't feel good to be the last one left in the graveyard. It kind of feels like you're like in the wrong space. But what happens is it's very easy to get a lot of traction for something very simple, where anyone that could actually pay you big money graduates back to AWS or like, some other bad service, but meets the needs that a bigger company has. So really focus on, you just got to do both. You got to make something that's really simple on day one, but like has no ejection point. If it has an ejection point, there's no like big business here.
Yeah. And the best part too about working in open source is you can be petty with users. If they're like, bro, why is this bug not fixed? Fix it yourself, dude. Fire up Cursor, take your hand at it. Don't come to me about this. Go try to watch some epic web videos and figure out how to fix your hydration.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're going to believe this or not, but I've actually never done that. Which is
no
maybe surprising
way.
given my personality.
No.
Okay, so I'll explain why. Because I'm not an open source. Like my projects aren't just like hobby projects for myself that some annoying person shows up in. They're commercialized products. These are like my customers. And when a customer complains, like, I don't react that way because I have a way to get paid through all this. So it's like a different kind of relationship. The only time I can remember where like I was annoyed and I had like an aggressive response, and I knew this was going to happen. When I released OpenAuth, there's just a bunch of people that are like out there just looking to like any opportunity to sound smart. And so they came in and opened all these issues like this isn't secure, like JWTs aren't secure because of blah, blah, blah. It's just like they don't consider any practical trade-offs or anything. They just have some bullet point where they're like, this isn't secure, just to sound smart.
If someone had root access to my system, then this whole thing would be insecure. Yeah, that's
exactly. It's like if they do an XSS attack, they can access the access token here. If they do an XSS attack, they can call any of your API endpoints. It doesn't matter whether they grab the access token or not. It's just like they don't consider that. And I knew that was going to happen. I knew the type of person that does that. I was very annoyed, and I literally was like, no, like this is what you're doing. I'm not here for like drive-by comments like this that like create a bunch of like fear for people. And I like wrote up a code of conduct being like, if you're gonna create a security issue, like you need to explain it in this way, explain the trade-offs, the plus sides, the downsides of the security issue. Also, obviously disclose it to us privately first if it's a real one. So I wrote that in the code of conduct. Next day I wake up, some random code of conduct police guy is like, this is not really what code of conduct is for. And like, I'm like, who are you? Like, are you going to be someone that's involved with this project at all? Or are you just like looking for?
he's a Reddit mod who's surfing the interwebs.
Yeah, like he sent a PR feeling with like very generic, like you need to be a good person, like type of code of conduct things. And I'm just like, okay. Anyway, I think I get annoyed with open source, but not in the traditional way, I think.
Yeah, but I think recently too, with Cursor and all these AI tools now, and with the open source, because I mean, like you'll get some indie dev who's like, I know how to code, when he's really just vibe coding in Cursor and doesn't even know what a npm package is or test is, for God's sake. They cloned the repo and like kind of asked Cursor to talk them through it to kind of implement a change, and like you get this vibe coded mess. I've seen like for example, Zero.email, they're open source and they're doing a lot of stuff. I was talking to Nizzy the other day, and he says like he'll get a couple PRs a week that are just absolutely vibe coded slop, where it's like you can literally like see like the Cursor prompts because it's like stored in the Cursor rules or whatever. And it's like add this massive feature that would take like a whole team to like a week to implement, and it just tries to one shot it. Do you think that like the AI junkification is kind of ruining the open source and making it harder because like there's 10x more PRs for the maintainers to kind of review? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of categorize projects differently. Like there's projects that are open source for fun, and there's projects that are strategically open source. So if you look at a lot of the SST projects, the reason they're open source, well, one, they have to be because they're libraries and like it doesn't make sense otherwise, but there's like a secondary thing. I think I mentioned this last week. Open source is great when there is a very well scoped core that is attached to a long tail of problems, right? If you take something like OpenAuth, there's a core that is like, is like very compact, but there's like a long tail of different providers, like sign in with Google, sign in with Apple, sign in with whatever.
Sign in with Lego.
Sign in with Lego. I'm pretty sure we have that in there now. It's really, open source is great for that because I'm not going to go like figure out Lego sign in. It's better for the person that's actually trying to use it to like write that adapter. So that's the benefit of open source. Like SST works that way itself. Like we cover like the core things that we use, but if you're like a Python user or if you're like a Rust user, it's not something that we use day to day. So it's better for them to like handle those like components. But the core is not something that we like no one even tries to contribute to the core. I think sometimes we do get contributions, but like it's very clear that we're just working on it and we're pretty much ignoring all feedback about that because our structure is we build a core, but to cover the long tail, we need the community's help. So those are the types of projects that I tend to put in open source. They don't really attract this kind of problem. I can see how if you're building just like an end user web app and you happen to make it open source, mostly because it's fun, you're going to get people like just adding random features here and there. And that's kind of, even outside the vibe coding thing, like the feature might not be a good idea, or like you might not even want to implement it in a certain way, right? So those drive-by PRs are like pretty useless even before vibe coding.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must be frustrating, essentially, because people are like, hey, let me just add this completely unrelated feature that doesn't even work just to the thing. And yeah, there we go. Good.
Yeah. So, but I enjoy open source. I think it's fun. I think it's also funny. A lot of funny dynamics. And I think the coolest thing is, so talking about negative PRs, every once in a while you get like an outrageously insanely useful PR that like meaningfully like improves your product. The last one I remember is, so for ST console, we have like a CI product in there. And it has caching like any CI product. Someone just dropped the PR that improves the cache restoration speed by 10x. And we're just like, what? That's really crazy. So yeah, it is awesome when you get PRs like that. And you always do. Like it's always shocking that someone like dug in that deeply to something not well documented, not easy to run locally. Like I didn't put in that much work to like really make it easy to contribute to. They still did it anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's the you get some good drive-by PRs and some bad drive-by PRs. I think that's a
the good ones make up
PRs
for
right there.
Thing.
So this was just dropped in chat, and this is controversial, I know. So SQL and Uncle Bob.
To be honest, I'm like,
I genuinely don't know how you're gonna. I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna say. So I'm actually interested.
I barely like listen to any of it. I'm just gonna assume I understood what it is, so I'm gonna go from there. I think I get his point. Like SQL was meant to be human readable, unstructured thing you can type in easily, and that gets converted into something that calls like a structured API. He's like, why can't developers just directly have access to that API? And I think I can point to some good tools that simulate that we can probably agree is pretty good. Like Link from C# is it's an abstraction a lot of people think is cool. If your database natively understood that, I think that makes a lot of sense. There's been a few products. I think, was it EdgeDB or was it maybe I think it was EdgeDB. There's been a few databases that try to like design a really good query language that preserves like the whole relational model and have the database natively understand that. I think that makes sense. I don't think that's that controversial. I think people just focus in on the SQL sucks part, which is obviously incendiary. And
then the video he dropped was
well, the video, yeah. So I watched the one from today and I was like, this is crazy.
We know, we all saw your response to that.
I want to do another one. I want to like really practice and try to see if I can do a good imitation of him. Because to me, I'm just like, why is everyone talking about sequel? Like, look at this video. The sequel part is not the most interesting thing in this video. It's he talks like he's so theatrical and like, is he a theater kid? Is he a psychopath? Like,
here, do
really
your best version of it, because I know you may say you haven't, but I know you've been like practicing it like in the bathroom. You're just like, so give your best promote Terminal, but like do it in that voice. Let's see it.
Promote. No, I'll talk about something else. I think I think the way he talks, he's like, Tailwind, the supposed successor to CSS. Tailwind doesn't solve anything. CSS is still critical for any serious application. You know, it's like crazy that he just talks like that. I can't do it for like more than 10 seconds.
Bravo.
Right.
Bravo.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, that was good.
Laughing in between, and I'm just like, this is wild. Like, does he talk? Does he go into like a restaurant? He's like, I will take the number 8 with cheese. Like, is that how he like goes around his life? Like, I don't know. But
that's
interesting.
Yeah,
dude.
That's interesting. So we'll get back on track here. No more questions from chat. And we're kidding. Anyways, so you also do a podcast, you know, two guys and a crazy idea. The burger joint is going to be dropping next after the podcast. I think that's the men's life cycle is start a business, then a podcast, then a burger joint, and then a book, and that's how you wrap it all up.
Oh, is it a burger joint? That's great. That fits in their terminal perfectly. Terminal burger.
Exactly. Terminal burger. Yeah. And then terminal book is how you wrap it all up, and that's how you make your trillions of dollars when you go live in Mar-a-Lago and everything like that. Anyways, you and Adam go and talk about future of tech every week and stuff like that on your
Is that
podcast.
what we talk about? I don't think we talk about the future of tech anymore. I'll explain what the podcast really is.
Okay. So first, why did you start it? And then what is it now?
Yeah.
There wasn't much intentionality with starting it. Adam had a podcast called AWS.fm. When I was first getting into all his AWS stuff, I like sheepishly messaged him being like, hey, I think this AWS.fm thing is cool. Like, I'd love to be a guest sometime. That was like my first podcast episode ever. And it was like a big deal. But we stayed in touch after that, and he kept inviting me back. And eventually he was like, should we just do this together all the time? And I was like, yeah, sure. And we every single episode for like the first 100 episodes before the episode, we'd be like, should we like structure this more? Like, should we like plan what we're going to talk about? Should we like research stuff? And we'd be like, yeah, we'll do that next time. And then we just never did. So it's really just us getting on, just having a personal catch up more or less. And we'll talk about some tech here and there. And we just get really good feedback from that, because I think there's not really a lot of stuff in tech that is that format. So I think we kind of like accidentally hit on a formula that works. We're actually we're going to start investing in it a lot more, just to like up the production value and like make it grow properly. Or like move it onto the terminal branding. But yeah, it's just like me and Adam catch up and we just record it, because you know, if you have friends, you gotta use them for content. That's
what I've been telling everybody, man. They're like, Ryan, why are you so friendly? Content, man. If I'm talking to you, it is more likely being recorded by some secret camera somewhere, and this is going to be posted on my X account later for content.
Yeah, I don't even like Adam. I don't really like anyone on the terminal team. I'm just using them for content.
That's what I was talking to Prime, and he was like, yeah, I hate everybody on the terminal team, and it's just for content purposes only. It makes a lot of sense.
Wait till you hear that Dax doesn't drink coffee. That's crazy.
Yeah, I hate coffee.
Oh, we're exposing that.
I hate coffee. Yeah. I think it's gross. I like coffee ice cream. I like coffee flavored things. I just don't like coffee. And I judge people that drink coffee. Get a hold of yourself, but also subscribe to terminal.shop. Get coffee.
Subscribe to Cron.
That's right.
It's funny, when I was making the terminal shop buttons, I thought I was pointing to a dev endpoint, but I was pointing to a prod one, and I think I ordered like 3 or 4 different like of the same things, and I don't know if it like the idempocy picked up on it, but I don't know. We'll see in a couple days if I get a bunch of coffee. I'll have to make content out of it, because that's all you can really do in life. So
going back to podcasts.
Going back to podcasts.
Yeah. So you're just two bros hanging out talking. You said you're going to invest more into the podcast and grow up the production value. I love to hear that. I love the podcast. I think you guys do cool content together. Can you tell us a bit about what this experience of running a podcast taught you? Like, what's the biggest lesson for you?
Here, let me take notes.
Yeah, I think I learned a little bit about myself in terms of like where I want to be and what I want to do. And I'll explain a little bit about that. So I think the formula for most podcasts are you want to grow it, you want to get a bigger audience. So you try to bring on guests that people know, so that they kind of, you hear a little bit. You kind of like expand to their audience. You stack these guests back to back, and like your podcast grows. And that's great. I think some of the biggest podcasts in the world, that's basically how they did it until they're all the way up to like the president of the United States or whatever.
Thanks. We're having him on next week, so we really appreciate you saying that about us. That's it's a good leap. Yeah, we got Elon next week, and then the president the week after.
Well, yeah, but, I guess the connection is from me to Elon. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but I learned, because we started to do some of that, and I didn't like it. I really didn't like being in the interviewer position, because I guess my ego is too high or something. But I found that I am a lot more interested in, when we have guests on, like now we're a lot more intentional about this. I like to bring on peers that are like, I'm already kind of friendly with, that are like kind of in the same stage of their life, roughly. So we can just hang out and talk, and it's less about like, here's the guest, and then like the interviewer's job is to like kind of get information out. It's just a personal thing. Like, I just didn't enjoy that as much. So I really like this thing where I know a lot of interesting people now, people that people haven't really heard from as much. So we try to discover those and like show them to people. It's not that helpful for growth, because we're not like piggybacking on another audience, which is why we have to kind of get a little more intentional about how we're growing the thing, which is what I'm talking about. We're going to put more production value into it. So it won't grow as fast, but I think for me, it's what I enjoy.
See,
I have my friends on, basically.
We're just using you for content right now. We don't even care, man. We're like, we can get the Dax namespace. Perfect. We'll just use that.
That's right. Moving on to the next section. Talking about life and life advice. We've met you in person at React Miami the other week. It was very, very lovely to come to your party, hang out with a bunch of cool people, and meet your wife, Liz. It was really, really awesome. And I noticed that Liz has been like super helping you all the time at the party with everything. This is something that a lot of people could dream of. And I was curious to hear, like, in terms of relationship or in general life advice, what would your advice to engineers who are like 24/7 bound to their computers? How do you get to that?
Yeah, I think me and Liz are a little lucky in that our work overlaps a lot. So we get a double count time spent together and work. Me and her build products together. We work on our companies together. So we can spend an hour at night like working on a product together, and that's like good quality time together, and also getting work done. A lot of people say, oh man, I can't imagine working with my wife or girlfriend or something, and I think that's true. Maybe for a lot of people that doesn't make sense, but we met through work. We were coworkers and friends first, and then we started dating. That aspect of our life has continued to now.
Data-driven dating. All day.
Yeah. So I think we're lucky, and yeah, I don't know if everyone can replicate that, but it's one of the things that I feel bad for. The world shifting more to work from home. Meeting your partner at work is probably a huge way that people met, in general. So
right.
I work from home for most of my career, but it was always for companies in my same city. So I'd still go into the office here and there. With that kind of disappearing, I'm like, I literally wouldn't have met my wife. Like, how would I have even met anyone.
Yeah.
So I think two things. I think companies should. I generally think companies should go more back to office more. I know people hate that, but I think most people are better there. And two, HR departments need to back off and let coworkers date. Like, it's important. Like, let everyone just date each other at the company. It's going to cause a mess, but there's going to be good stuff that comes out of it too.
Just think of all the amazing products that will come out of that. I mean, like
little children, little human will come out of that.
Child. And then if you think about it, those children are free workers because they can just put their resources right back into the company. And
I was saying,
if you think about it, it's a business investment.
Oh my God. So many partnership opportunities just closed for our show. Yeah. All right.
You can eat them. Their meat is more tender than eating the adult employees. So.
Okay. Oh my God. Moving on.
I'll take this next one. I got to recover this. Oh yeah, this goes right in line with it. So you're known as one of the one of the nicest X accounts ever. Like you never have a rude or mean take. You're always so inviting for everyone, and everyone you talk to just loves your vibes and energy. How do you it's a lot of authentic ideas that are either just random posts or like actual good, like knowledgeable stuff. Do you just like tweet on the toilet, or what's your kind of workflow for that? Just when you have an idea pop into your head, you're like, hey, let me tweet this.
I was telling someone the other day, or earlier today, I was like looking at my total tweet count and like dividing it by my account age, and I was like, what the fuck? How I'm tweeting this much? Like, how is that possible?
Let's check. Hold on. Okay, so 2014, you have 28,000.
No, but the thing is, I wasn't really using my Twitter until more recently. So
how many years ago? How many years have you been using Twitter?
Let's say 5 years. Like most of my, I would say like 90% of my tweets in the last 5 years.
Right. Dude, that's like 15 posts a day.
Yeah, something like that.
Dang.
And I'm just like, that is crazy. Like even so in the past, let's do like a more recent thing. So I think I have 3,500 in the past year, which is around like 10 a day, right?
Holy cow, dude.
I kept that up. There was a period of time where I was like, I actually spent a lot of time on like the more VC founder side of Twitter before I like joined tech Twitter. Like I spent like a couple of years just more on that side. And I was like, I want to learn how to write better and how to like communicate my thoughts. And I found that Twitter's constraints around, 240 characters is actually a very good tool, because you have to drop stuff that you really want to, you have to like really pick the things that you want to express and like try to be clear while being as terse as possible. I think I've gotten worse recently, but like, there was like that really helped me. So like, I like really invested in like, any idea I have, I want to find a way to communicate it as 240 characters. And I've just kept that habit through the years. So now whenever I have a thought, I just like the gap from thought to on Twitter is like minutes.
Sub-second. It doesn't even fully form in your head, and you just stream it directly to your like.
Oh man, I can't wait for Neuralink integration for that.
I'm gonna up those numbers. Gonna be crazy.
Oh my gosh, dude. The Neuralink integration with Twitter is gonna be horrible. I'm gonna need an alt at that point. I'm gonna because it's funny with how much I've grown in the past, because everyone's been telling me this, like, oh, you're growing so much. I'm like, I really haven't, but I'm looking at my numbers. I'm almost at like 2K followers right now, and I joined in November. And back in like November and stuff like that, I could post whatever I wanted. Nobody would see it. And now I've got these big industry leaders, thankfully not you, following me.
Well, I unfollowed everyone like a few months ago, and I've been rebuilding. So,
he's too cool. He's only following 75 people.
I just reset
that tight.
I'm not one of those people that's like trying to keep my number low. I'm just rebuilding right now. I'm in a rebuilding phase.
That's fair. But no, now I can't. I gotta like do a second take before I post something, because like, for example, like the other day, like Guillermo followed me, and I'm like, well, crap. Now I can't like post anything. I've got to well, would this look good if my mom and Guillermo looked at it?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like shackles. I mean, me too. Whenever I post something, I'm like, I hope Guillermo. I better not post anything that upsets Guillermo. That's mostly
Right?
what I consider.
Well, I don't know if we want to get into that. But,
Can I just say
I
something?
will say the feeling you're feeling is very natural. I felt it too, but it's gonna cap you if you don't get over it.
it's the
like,
feeling, but then I'm like, I'll just hit post anyways, or I even forget that I even have those people following me.
Yeah, I remember
whip
being
out the
like, I
phone
remember like
quickly.
earlier on, I was like really excited that I was able to connect with someone and they followed me, and I'd be very, very nervous that I would be annoying and they would unfollow me. It's just like a phase you go through, and then you kind of stop caring again.
Yeah, why would
It's
you
been
care?
right?
Why would you care? Right. After the little bro incident, I imagine you just don't care about anything.
I mean, that was a great situation.
Yeah.
You set me up so well.
Yeah.
Right? It was so funny at React Miami. Obviously, did you see what we did with Tej with the best Dax?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I was talking to Michelle about this. I was like, because I didn't really know you that well before that. So I was like, I really want to do like the Lil Bro award, but I was like, I don't know him that well, but I feel like it would have hit. So
Yeah, so it's funny because no matter what, even if you're trying to be like really yourself on social media, people just get a 2D version of you because one, they don't even see all your posts.
Yeah.
And two, like it's just like you can only glean so much about a person from what they're posting. So people have like these hilariously, have they come to understand what exaggerated, flat versions of me people have in their head. Like a lot of people think I'm like really mean, and I'm like really like
you are
gonna be mean to them. But it like works in my favor because when they meet me, I can be normal and they think that I'm extra nice because they expected someone really mean.
I was gonna say you're so nice in person.
But no, it's just a trick. I'm actually just normal.
That's crazy. Like the expectation of what I thought you would be versus what I saw in you, like completely changed my mind. Completely.
Yeah. And that goes like me understanding that makes me realize I have really stupid flat versions of people in my head too. And I think we've all kind of experienced this, especially moving to remote work. Like we've all felt that feeling where you're just interacting with someone over Slack for a while, and then you meet them in person, and like a lot of your annoyance with them like kind of just evaporates out of nowhere.
Right.
It's like a good reset.
Like, oh, you're just drinking your coffee and you're not instantly responding. I'm interested because I know you had talked to Goose before the React Miami party. Did you know a lot of me before the React Miami party? Like, did you have this like mental image of me by chance?
I actually thought you were like a lot weirder than you were.
Okay, let me write that down.
Like
I don't blame you for that.
You're very personable and I would say pretty extroverted, and that totally makes sense in my head now. But when you don't know the person that well, and you're just getting like a whiff of here and there, you're like, is he like a freak? Like I don't know,
No, I definitely don't blame you for being a freak because I was spamming that Terminal Shop account with all like my little inventions and stuff like that. So I don't blame you at all. I was literally like texting like once a week. Hey, do you want keychains? Hey, do you want this?
Well, it's just like the thing is when you do stuff publicly this much and done over the years, like we've had some like very weird situations, some like scary even like where like the police had to get involved.
Holy shit.
So like after those situations, you're just like sniffing for like
red
flags everywhere. But yeah, it's just funny in hindsight. You're like the total opposite of anything. Well, I mean, maybe you secretly are a creep. I don't know, but I don't know you that well. But yeah, just in our field, a lot of weird people generally. I think people tend to be a little weird.
And it makes sense too, because obviously, like the Terminal crew, I think you guys have over a combined like 500,000 followers and stuff like that of all your accounts and stuff like that. So obviously that type of following is going to bring a lot of people to like want to engage. And I mean, whenever anybody engages with anything, the reason is because they want to get something out of it. So if they think if they engage with you, then they'll get 1,000 billion trillion followers and stuff like that. And that's just not fun. I've found, in my opinion, it's a lot more fun if you connect with them on like a human, personable level, and you just vibe with them. You don't go up and be like, Dax, can I have a photo, please? Please, I just want a photo to post on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And,
well, here's the thing: we're early in. We're so early enough where we're like that. Like really flatters us. Like I know Prime loves that. Prime loves when people are like Prime. Okay. Here's what actually happens. Right. Whenever we do an event, everyone sees Prime. Prime, you changed my life. Like I love you. I watch you every day. Blah 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 blah. People come up to me. Hey Dax, so with the CloudFront distribution, I'm having a problem with literally this happens every time. They just ask me AWS questions, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is
my gosh,
in the world.
Prime, you're awesome. Dax, when's issue 532 gonna get fixed? I pushed a PR for it last week.
Yeah.
I mean,
just
it
like
doesn't
ask
help
me.
your image.
It's like oftentimes it doesn't do with SST. It's just they personally have an AWS issue that has nothing to do with anything I work on.
You are
but
AWS.
I usually can fix it. So I get.
Well, I
get
mean,
why.
like at React Miami, you were in when Terminal Feud was going on. You were literally like in the front row, like on your Mac, 2 MacBooks, like running the entire thing. So
yeah,
you're the tech guy.
Yeah,
I'm the tech guy in the team of engineers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going back to what you were saying. I think just like Terminal's reach is getting. I think we probably reach like in the millions of people every month across, mostly Prime and a lot of TJ through them. And we're gonna grow a lot more. Like it's clearly that's gonna happen. And I'm like seeing what that actually looks like and realizing like I have like no urge to like personally be at that level. Like whenever you see famous people complain about being famous, you're just like, they're just being annoying. But being a little bit more up close, I'm like, there's like a lot of weird parts with it. I think I'm more interested in like, I'm happy with like the niche that I'm in. I like connecting with, like I said, like my peers, building companies, things like that. But I think that like just like the average person on the street recognizing you, which Prime I think will hit in the next like 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
It gets kind of weird and maybe even scary sometimes.
Yeah. So you said millions, right? In reached audience for Terminal, like overall for all the creators. I think there was a study saying that for each million you have like 1 serial killer or something like that. So watch out, man.
One serial killer?
Yeah.
It's actually me, so you can just mark that off your list.
Well, you guys saw my dog. There's a reason I have.
No, I know, right?
I'm not super worried, but yeah, everyone should get a scary dog as part of joining Terminal, I think.
Smart thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Quick stack lighting question for you. What's your stack? Editor, machine, preferred OS?
Remote dev man here who colonized everything.
Yeah, I made a whole video on this, but yeah, just real quick summary. It's so editor, NeoVim, been a Vim user forever, switched to NeoVim probably like 5 years ago or so. Traditionally, I've always been on a desktop PC that I've built, and I currently am on one that's running Arch Linux, dual booted to Windows because I like to game every once in a while. I recently switched to doing all my work remotely, so I run everything in several TMUX sessions for each project, which them runs on a remote server, extremely beefy, really overpowered, but lets me like keep up like 8 different projects always running at a time, which is great. What I love about that setup is you can be here working, grab my MacBook Air, walk over to my bed, like lie down in bed, connect back to the same TMUX session. The same file is open. Literally, the cursor is on the same line that I was on my desktop. So it's an awesome setup. It makes a MacBook battery last like forever. And the MacBook Air is like a fantastic piece of hardware, like just physically.
Oh, yeah.
That combined with like, I still get to use Linux basically because I'm remoted into the server. But yeah, I love it. Really happy with my setup so far. And yeah, Prime just switched to Arch as well.
I saw that because of PewDiePie. I mean, like, who would have in the course of events? Who would have ever imagined PewDiePie would have switched before Prime? That's just like crazy.
It was annoying because I was the only one on the team that used Arch. Well, Began joined the team and Began uses Arch, so I got a little more. They just would keep calling me a virgin and like childless and stuff. So I'm like, you guys don't know. You guys don't understand how great it is to be able to install any piece of software through the Arch user repository. It's amazing.
Right.
Well,
Brian
nowadays
finally
it's seen the
sees
light.
the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got some questions from chat that
Yeah, do it.
they're actually not bad. I'm very happy with our chat today. Good job, guys. So we got three main ones. First one, four main ones. How much AI are you using to build like the entire SST stack project? Because I know I talked to you on a post a while ago, and you said that you kind of brought up your philosophy of if a code base has good code to start off with, the AI can really iterate on that good code and those principles to kind of build off of it.
Yeah.
So are you still kind of following in suite with that, or is something else changed?
Yeah, so for SST itself, we don't use AI that much besides just like the autocomplete in our editor because it's such a weird project. It's not like a standard project. It's like a CLI tool that like spins up infrastructure and also like runs JavaScript inside. It's like really weird.
Right.
Having AI like asking to do anything like doesn't really work. Even some of our components that we put together, which are like, I would say like they're, if you know AWS, like building our components isn't that hard, but it does a really bad job at like trying to build. If we want to build like, hey, we need a new component for OpenSearch, it just doesn't do a good job, misses all these cases. Like it's not even a good starting point. So we don't use it too much on SC itself. But when we have like a more normal feeling project, like it's a web application with like a front end and a back end and there's styling and there's components, it really feels a lot like my days building systems for junior engineers where I would like build a core system where like a lot of the big decisions were made and it's really about assembling those parts together. So my work looks like I'm a manager again, or like a lead, it's a team lead or something.
Right.
And I look to see how the AI, I give the AI a task. I see where it does a good job. I see where it's getting mixed up. Then I go into the code base to make sure that the good patterns are enforced and the bad patterns are impossible. And the AI slowly gets better. It's the AI is not getting better. It's just my code base is like just better for someone junior to work in, more or less.
Yeah.
So I do use it really heavily and I push it as much as I can when I'm working on like a normal project, to mixed outcomes, right? Some days I'm like, this is awesome. Some days I'm like, this sucks. Some days I'm like, this sucks, but it's my fault because the code base is too confusing for it.
Or you're just
I'm
too
still very
lazy
interested
to
in
like
pushing to see where it can be.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed like it's so weird because some days like you'll be coding and I'll be in Cursor and I'm like, wow, this is like perfectly hitting everything. It's hitting all of the security concerns spot on. It's making sure everything's covered. And then other days it's like just completely rewriting like React from the ground up. And it's like, why? Just I swear they like throttle like the intelligence level or something like that.
Yeah, like I find that I typically give it very directed tasks of like,
yeah,
it's usually something that only needs to touch one file, and sometimes it'll just start updating like 10 different files and like fucking
3.7 is even worse. You're like, why are you generating a README for this? This is I asked you to refactor from like a ES7 to a standard import thing. It's like, let me add a README file so that way you know how to use this. I'm like, I don't need that. Just fix the file.
Yeah, and 3.7 is unusable, straight up unusable. At least in my experience.
Yeah.
Anywho,
so with our work on open code, we're like really experimenting with more clever ways to use these things. Like I was talking to Adam today, and he's like, his workflow where like an initial task is sent to Gemini 2.5 first to create an outline, and then those steps are passed to 3.7. He found that's like way better, and he's trying to like bake that into the tool. So I think we're still discovering how to like, these are all like just funny hacks. They're like, we're like gluing together these like kind of hacky workflows, but it does improve performance. And also open code has LSP integration, which helps a lot.
Very cool.
That works.
Awesome. Another question from Chad. Do you now use OpenAuth for everything you build or no?
Pretty much, because like the idea with OpenAuth is you deploy a central auth server and you reuse it for every project for the same company. So Terminal has auth.terminal.shop. Our SSH thing uses it. Our website uses it. Any random experiment we do uses it. So it's nice to have just like one that we just reuse all the time. I have one for SST, pretty much everything that I use. I mean, I built it for myself, so it's not working
it's
for
really
me. It's
nice.
not a good project.
Right. It's really nice too, because that way then you don't have to go in and reset up a Google OAuth client and all this other junk. Because especially then when with managing like between dev, preview, production, servers, and managing all those OAuth clients, and then having to go update 3 different things if you change the domain.
Yeah.
That's where I found it helpful, because it's just you always have the same setup, and I just have like a cursor rules file now that I have that has like super detailed steps. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I found that most big companies, their products end up working this way. Like when you log into any Google product, it goes to the Google Auth service. So it's kind of just giving that like thing that you wouldn't do to your big company up front, and it's pretty useful even at small scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap up right here. So where should all of our lovely listeners and stuff like that dive into SST more or find your work online? You get 30 seconds to plug your own content. Go.
My Twitter, THDXR, is where pretty much everything I ever think ends up, as we just talked about. ST.dev, that's my main project I work on. And then open up your terminal, type in SSH terminal.shop, be blown away by what you see. There you go.
SSH terminal.shop -cron. Or is it just cron?
Is that a thing that works?
Yeah, that's how you subscribe.
I think we added that. I think that's like a deep link. It's like a term. It's like a SSH deep link. We're like reinventing all these concepts. -t cron. Yeah, it like selects cron right away. That's funny.
Yep. Beautiful.
So cool.
All right. And the last question, we ask all the guests that question as a closer. One piece of advice that you would give yourself from 10 years ago as a DM, or you talk to yourself, what would it be?
It's very easy. You are being way too risk averse. Any thought you have of I want to do X, but I first need to do A, B, and C before I can do X. Don't waste your time. Just go try to do the big thing. It is just as hard to work on small, sure things as it is to work on big, long shots. The difference is when a big, long shot fails, you end up in a much better place. So it's taken me a very long time to really internalize that, and just go for the biggest possible thing, no matter how crazy it sounds.
Shoot for the moon, end upon the stars. Yeah.
It's a cliche, and it's like with all cliches, it's correct, but it takes a very long time to really internalize properly.
Right.
Great advice. Great advice.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. Definitely got a lot of great insights on stuff like that. I know I definitely learned some stuff. But yeah, so thanks for coming on. This was great.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
And yeah, so thank you to everyone who was joining in today for NextDev. Next week, I think we'll be doing an episode on Friday instead of Thursday at 7 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. PST. But yeah, thanks for watching. And I'm Ryan. This is my co-host Goose, and this is Dax, and we will see you next time.
See you, everyone.